So welcome everyone. I'm calling the meeting to order. We have a quorum tonight for the Learning Center District Board meeting. So do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Motion is made and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. First item on the agenda are public comments. We have no public comments. Approval of consent agenda, which is the regular board meeting of February 18th, is the first thing on the agenda. Do I hear a motion on the minutes of the February 18th meeting?
I think I have a, Madam Chair, I think I have a correction.
Okay.
It's just this one. I was listed as the chair. Maybe it was not February 18th, but at some point there I was listed as a chair, and I was not the chair. Anyway.
Maybe we could do a
Move on.
motion saying that we approve them subject to the correct titles? Would that be
Yes, okay.
verification of the titles?
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Second, anyone?
Not important. Not important.
I'll second it.
Motion is made and seconded. Is there any discussion? So the motion is to approve the regular board meeting minutes of February 18th, subject to clarification of titles, of correct titles. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Chair, I think where Member Romero is looking at is in paragraph 3 of that of that draft. You might just want to fix that.
The title,
Yeah,
paragraph 3.
yeah. It called him. Well, no, I take that back. That was Vice Chair Romero, so that's not that paragraph. Disregard that.
Okay. So we have no action items that were removed from the consent agenda. So we move on to action items that are non-consent and to consider the adoption of the Open Meetings Act resolution.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this is the same action that the governing board took for the regular board meetings in May. We need to adopt annually the Open Meetings Act resolution for the Learning Center District Board.
I so move.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to adopt the Open Meetings Act resolution. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Member Sullivan?
is there any requirement, President Grissom, as to where the board meetings are held?
I do not think so, as long as we do the notice. So when we publish the notice, we have to say where it's going to be held.
Okay, I just
Normally, we have held them here, but we did hold the one meeting.
I know we held one meeting.
Higher Education Center.
I just didn't know in this resolution whether there was any requirement for that. That's my only question.
So a motion's been made and seconded. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda are our informational updates. Ms. Estrada has the update for us.
Dr. Estrada.
Ms. Gallegos.
Madam Chair, as member of the board, thank you. And today, I'm actually going to hand it over to Julie Gallegos, because what we're going to do is present to you. As you might remember, we had the opportunity to discuss the last time we had a meeting that we had sent out a survey to the community, to business partners, to internal partners, students, prospective students, to get some feedback so that we could begin making some decisions regarding our strategic plan. That survey, of course, was completed. We also had the opportunity to take that to an HEC advisory committee meeting. And so basically what we'll be doing this evening is presenting the survey data that was collected, as well as talking a little bit about what we heard at that HEC advisory committee and what we think we might want to do moving forward.
Madam Chair, members of the board, President Grissom. Let me step back actually just a little bit and let you know something about how we actually designed the survey. Previous to putting the survey out, we had some meetings, some small group meetings with some board members, with President Grissom, with the advisory committee, and as a result of those meetings, we were able to draft an initial mission statement and some possible goal statements, and use those kind of as a starting point for developing the strategic plan, so that we weren't just starting at ground zero. We wanted to have something to bounce off people. So you'll see those incorporated into the survey design. Next slide, please. This shows the list of folks that the survey was actually distributed to. It went to all the members of the advisory council. There are 30-some members. Is that right, Rebecca? Mm-hmm. Went to SFCC faculty, staff, and students, to the partners and students at the HEC, to Santa Fe Public School partners, and also went out through the B2C e-newsletter. That's the Birth to Career collaboration through the Santa Fe Community Foundation, and went to the 2 chambers of commerce. From those surveys that went out, we got 310 responses. Next slide. So this next slide shows you a little bit about who actually did respond. I apologize, it's a little difficult to read, but we did have the largest response from the student population. About 15% responded from K to 12, and almost 24% of the responses came from people working within college systems. So about 2/3 of the respondents were actually either working in higher education or actually a current student. Other respondents were in business, government, nonprofit, and then we had a category of 15% that was just others, and that was included parents of students, retirees, non-traditional students, those kinds of respondents. We wanted to, I'm sorry. We wanted to gauge, first of all, how familiar the respondents were with the Higher Education Center. We had I believe about 27, almost 28% that were very familiar, 48% that were somewhat familiar, and then almost a quarter of the respondents you'll see were either somewhat unfamiliar or very unfamiliar. So keep that in mind as you look through the response, the actual comments that I believe you have. As you're looking through those, just remember that there were a number of respondents that really just had no real familiarity. Next. So we started by proposing this mission statement, expanding access to higher education through partnerships. 90% thought that was a pretty good mission statement. But we did actually have some feedback from some that felt like, actually if you go to the next slide, you'll see all the comments on the comment sheet that was sent out to you, but this kind of gives an overview of some of the 10% that felt like maybe it was a little too vague, they didn't understand what was meant by some of the terms, maybe they weren't quite familiar enough to really gauge whether it was an accurate mission statement or not. we actually had a discussion after we looked at this with the advisory group, and started throwing out ideas for how we might make some adjustments to that statement to address some of the concerns that were here. And then obviously it starts getting bigger and bigger. And in OPI, we really try to encourage mission statements that are 8 words or less. So that they're very concise, memorable statements. And so, again, that's a conversation that we'll probably want to go back to the advisory group and yourselves with. Do we want to expand it at all beyond these words? Is there a way to clarify it without going into pages?
The only thing that I'll add to that is that they did say at the end of that large discussion that ended up with like a 20-worded one, they also said that they also understood that 90% is pretty good. So that if 90% really felt like it was a good mission statement, they were happy to go with the majority. But it still proved very fruitful because, as we'll see, it'll help, I think, as we clarify our position and becoming more familiar within the community.
Next, we proposed these 4 possible goal statements. And asked for feedback on and ranking of how people would rank them in terms of what they thought should be the highest priorities. The one that came out first was increasing the number of bachelor's and master's degree programs offered in Santa Fe through partner institutions. And that was very clearly the first choice. The clear second choice was serving working adults with evening and weekend degree programs. The third option wasn't quite as clear, but once you consider the ranking that came out to third, it was and how they're weighted within the ranks, providing training that meets targeted workforce needs in northern New Mexico. And then the fourth choice was increasing community awareness of the HEC and the programs it offers. We also gave them the opportunity to comment on whether they felt like there were other important goals that were missing from these choices. And again, you'll see the full range of them within the comment sheets that you got. Just as an overview, these were some of the comments that people made. They'd like to see more variety of programs, more accessibility to working students, support economic development in northern New Mexico. They'd like to see the HEC building more relationships and partnerships, provide more workforce training. There was also quite a bit of conversation in those notes, those comments about serving other populations, not just the higher education population. They were interested in high school students, ESL students, so forth. And also using the building as a community resource, a site for workshops and community education classes. A few other comments that they made more related to, I believe, SFCC students was wanting to see more communication between the schools, and by that I'm actually assuming that they meant between the partner schools. Having seamless transfer from SFCC programs to the HEC, keeping costs low. And then there were a number of comments about student services, wanting to see more student services there on site at the HEC, and you'll see that list there. We also asked survey takers what they felt were going to be the needs in Santa Fe as far as employment. And we asked this question in 2 different ways. We asked what they thought the current need was and what they thought the need would be in the future, 3 to 5 years from now. Because we thought, especially with business respondents, that there might be some insight from those people about what the future needs might be. So we thought we might really see a difference between the current and the future. As it turned out, there really wasn't a dramatic difference in those 2 areas. And you can see the ones that came out ranked the highest: the STEM programs, teacher education, healthcare, and computer technology. And people generally felt those are the needs now, and they will continue to be the needs into the future. And if you look, again, at your comment sheet, you have some suggestions from people, what they've felt might be other degree offerings besides those that we listed. And again, there was the whole range. We saw everything from green technologies to vet tech to very specialized healthcare services, counseling, those kinds of things. So. And we finished the survey by asking what else can the HEC do to help meet the community's educational needs. And this again is an overview of some of the comments. Job fairs, internships and practicums for students, financial aid and subsidized daycare just to make it easier for students to attend classes at the HEC. More public presentations. There were specific comments about some of the presentations that have happened there in the past and how appreciated those were. Better services for working students, community enrichment classes. People like the location. They like that it's a little more convenient than SFCC. Increased involvement and building more partnerships with the public schools. We had some people that commented they would like to see more daytime classes there, some that wanted more nighttime and weekend classes, some that wanted more on-site and online. So basically everybody wants more. More variety of courses, more partnerships, more outreach.
So as we had the opportunity to, I'm going to steal this because I thought I was going to look up there. As we had the opportunity to take this particularly to the advisory committee and to our partners, but also had the opportunity to look at it ourselves, we realized there were a few things that we probably needed to do. And so part of what we'll be doing with you all this evening is asking, perhaps even if you would feel comfortable allowing us to adjust the timeline that we had initially proposed to you regarding when the strategic plan will be completed. And that is because we feel like there's some real potential here, but we clearly have some work that we need to do, but that it could be really good work. And so, for example, if you were to go back to the slide that talked about the respondents, we were glad that we got 310 responses. We were thrilled, actually, and because as you might remember, it went out around the legislative period. But we really want more from business. We really want more from industry. And we had great advisory committee members who themselves filled it out and sent it to some of their colleagues. But they really felt like if we had the opportunity to really do more outreach to those local and regional businesses to take advantage of their networks, that we'd really have the opportunity to get in front of more and different people and really hear what they were saying. So that, you know, if we're talking about doing an image campaign, for lack of a better phrase, which says, let us really tell you what the HEC is, give us an opportunity to really do that again in small audiences, go to a few more of those chamber meetings, go to a few more of those professional meetings that sometimes professional societies have when they come together, or even more informal ones. And there were, again, some suggestions that were made, and have a chance to, again, present, this is really what the HEC is and how it works. Some of the comments that we found, and even in our own advisory committee meeting, you know, I think people sometimes forget, or we haven't emphasized enough, that leveraging of resources. You know, they do their first 2 years at SFCC, and then they transfer into these programs that were identified through this initial RFP that was done. So they weren't quite sure of those things. And so the more we can give them a little bit more history and then get feedback, the better we would be. So that then our internal strategies, again, would be to adjust that strategic planning timeline, but also to do some one-on-one with businesses and with our partner institutions. Highlands, as we've discussed, and as of yesterday, they just get bigger, continues to grow. Some of the other ones are scaling back a little bit or adjusting how they're doing things. So let's really sit down and talk with them about a real forecast. Let's really get in with businesses and see what they're forecasting. Small focus groups, again, some more one-on-one. And then, of course, any additional feedback you'd like to give us as well.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Madam Chair, I don't have a question. I just have some comments. I first of all, I think it was amazing that you got 310 responses, and so that the question of information, how we get out and do outreach to provide the information. What are our partners doing in terms to help us to get the message out for the collaboration? Because obviously this is HEC is for our northern New Mexico primarily. We're wanting to stay in Santa Fe and northern New Mexico and get jobs here. But what are our partners doing to help us to promote that?
Thank you, Board Member Cedillo, for the question. They all vary a little bit, I'll be honest. So, again, New Mexico Highlands is always just a really good example. That particular team, they're meeting with the county. We tend to go on joint presentations. In fact, Tomasina Ortiz Gallegos and I, who serves as the site director there, we went to a county commission meeting and we presented on the HEC. We've gone together and separately to entities like Lanel and Lands. So they're doing their own regular recruitment.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing, the same thing that we do, college fairs, going to classrooms, things like that, coming here and presenting to our students who are currently in the programs that transfer. But then they're also doing these kind of partnership things. They're also going with our criminal justice faculty, again, to the county and to the state. And they're saying, look, you start at Santa Fe Community College, and Jerry Trujillo has his opportunity to give information on the SFCC program, and they say, and then you're going to seamlessly transfer right into this. And it's working for their state police. They're working with them on cohort programs. So they're building partnerships, talking about the HEC's role in that. We're going and doing these things jointly. Some of the other schools, UNM, for example, they do a lot of what I would just call the traditional recruitment cycle. They are out at college fairs. They're out at high schools. They're out doing a lot of those things. They are seeking a little less of those kinds of other partnerships that, say, Highlands is doing, and that has to do with their own particular strategic plan and the decisions that they're making. So it's going to vary a little bit depending on which institution you're referring to.
So, Madam Chair, when UNM goes out to do that kind of recruitment, is it specific to the HEC or is it just UNM?
They have one person who's dedicated to the HEC. Okay. So typically if you go to a college fair, you'll typically see the UNM sort of general main campus recruiter, and then next to them is the UNM HEC or UNM Site Santa Fe recruiter. So depending on if a student identifies, if they're talking even to the main campus and they're saying, but I don't know if I want to leave Santa Fe, then that recruiter will be like, well, look, here is, currently it's Carmen Lujan. Here is Carmen Lujan. Why don't you talk to her about what options you'll have at the HEC?
Madam Chair? Yes. I have several comments. So just based on what you were talking about, especially with the training, I can't come up with a good Santa Fe-based example. But like you said, Lance, both huge collaborators that work a lot with training. But if you can find someone in Santa Fe who's DOD, DOE, and is so geared toward you can only do this if you've been trained for that, that's going to be a huge resource to bring people in to use the facility for training. If you had everyone who went through White Rock Training Center for LANL training through the HEC, you'd have a lot of money and the need to rebuild. So if you can find a similar need in the community and bring that into the facility, I think that would probably be a great option within the business side. Additionally, I have a question, and that is, how feasible would it be, I know we're just one of the partners, to put our logo up on that building? Because I have the general student consensus is, if they do know what it is, they see it as our own. But the students who don't know what it is, if they're driving down the street, they're not going to recognize that as anything to do with us. So that's something that's been brought up a couple times, and I was hoping to see what the feasibility would be there.
Thank you for that. Actually, we do have, but you're right, it's in a significantly smaller and harder to see place. We actually have all of the partners, different partners' logos outside of the building. but in a maybe, like if you're looking at it from the street, you're not going to see it. And we also have all of the partner logos inside of the building in various places. But there has actually been a conversation, coincidentally, so it's a very good idea, of just talking about that outside of the building in general. You know, initially we were so interested in making sure that we were promoting the higher education center as a concept that that's absolutely the image we wanted out there. The higher education center and the logo that, of course, our marketing team created for the higher education center. But as we've moved forward, we have found, not just, you know, in comments here, but in the kind of feedback that you're providing, that the more we can really tell the story of what lives in the higher education center, which is, of course, the programs that live there, the schools that live there, and then therefore the students that attend there and make up those programs, that the more successful we're going to be. So actually, that's a current conversation that's happening regarding what's the feasibility, whether it's street signage or actually exterior signage in terms of increasing the visibility of the logos.
Excellent. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, if I could just add to that, we were limited on what we could put on the street sign by both the city and the county, the city and the state, because we have to lease that land for the corner sign. But we are looking right now. We did have originally some other ideas for signage on that big side of the building where you only see HEC, and we're revisiting that. We don't want to get it too busy, so we are looking at what we might do there. And some of our partners may pay to get on that building side.
Any other questions? No. Member Sullivan.
I think there's some good nuggets of wisdom buried in here. It's a little difficult to unearth them, but particularly on pages D14 and 15, where you have a variety, numerous comments that people have made about, you know, where they think the HEC should be going, and where it is right now. So I think those are pretty straightforward comments, and I think they're pretty well summarized in that first three bullets you have up there of needing more outreach, and they also said increased visibility and taking advantage of the capabilities of the people you have to deal with there. Although very small percentage, unfortunately, in our businesses, which is a concern of mine, at least you've got some, and get them making recommendations, particularly about an image campaign. And we always seem to think of image campaigns, or at least at SFCC, as being internal, but you know, I think you've got to look at external image campaigns as well. This competitive environment these days, and in order to compete and stay alive, you need to be out in the front of the power curve. I was also interested to see on page D10 your or the survey's results of which fields they felt were most in need of additional degree offerings. Number one being STEM, and that's always been an interest of mine, being an engineer, and it was something that was one of the issues that I raised during my campaign for board membership, and I know that it's difficult in the community college because we have a lot of students who need basic requirements to bring them up to speed in the fields of math and English and science, and so that often discourages them to pursue, and which is something we don't want to do. So it's very difficult, and I realize that challenge at SFCC. I think it's a big opportunity at HEC, because there we should be talking to students who are ready to go further, who are ready to go on, and have made it through the first 2 years or the first degree associate degree at SFCC. There, now STEM should be one of the areas that they should know about and should be promoted. And engineering anymore is really not engineering anymore. It's not architecture. It's not computer science. Although computer technicians came in number 2 on your list there, and number 3 was teacher education. It's problem solving, and so if we can develop professionals, students, graduates who are problem solvers, that's who employers are hiring. Some of the statistics, for example, in engineers is one of the biggest employers of engineers is banks. They really know how to technically get in and solve problems, and they're not just traditional in that field anymore. So I'm hopeful that we can see more opportunity in STEM eventually through HEC. And the only thing about your suggestion of extending the time for the plan is I'd really, along with that extension, personally, I'd like to see specifically what you have in mind. I know you talked about focus groups and some other things, but I think the ideas of the committee here are excellent. I think they really jumped in, but I saw they only want to meet once every 6 months, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So that indicates that they, have other things to do in life. So we have to take full advantage of that time available to us and drain their brains and get them to give them something to do, get them to commit to help out would be my recommendation.
So thank you, Board Member Sullivan. And so let me just add yes. And so I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. Yes, there was a large part of the discussion that said we really want more from the businesses, the local business and local industry. So we know that that's one of the focuses. And we actually, before we even met with the HEC advisory group, internally as well as with the partners, the other four-year institutions, realized that's where we need to start focusing our energies, is really looking at business, local industry, regional industry, talking about the kind of thing that Victoria was talking about, finding that niche training or those needs. And then, so yes, we're absolutely going to do that. And because we have such really good HEC advisory committee members, they won't all, you're right, they want to be focused and they want to be busy, but they have at least committed. And so once we know what our timeline is, we can actually provide information where they've all committed to saying, okay, when it's our turn, we'll take you to our network. When it's our turn, we'll take you to our group, our professional development meeting or our professional society meeting. So that, I think, will be huge. In terms of the STEM, we are looking at what we can do, obviously not just because of what we're hearing here and from the advisory committee, but also because of what we're hearing from Lanel and Lands. We have now some new articulation agreements with engineering in Northern, and it looks like they'll be bringing their program to the HEC in the fall. We're looking at computer technologies. We did a new articulation agreement with New Mexico Highlands for that, a couple of different tracks. One that's going to lead you slightly more to a traditional sort of computer engineering track, and one which will take you to a slightly more tech track, for lack of a better phrase. So I think we are looking at it. Of course, the truth is we're a little bit limited in the building, the facility itself. We don't have a computer lab. We don't have labs. What you would normally think of as when you think of science labs. But these are all conversations that, because of the survey results and because of the feedback we're getting, we realize we really need to look at it. So does it mean certain kinds of engineering courses can be over there? Certain kinds of computer technology courses can be over there? Yes. And so that's what we're looking at developing.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I'd like to just add to that a little bit. We don't have computer labs over there, but we do have rolling computers that can be set up in a room. But we always thought that for the HEC, yes, that is the building called the HEC, but many of the lab intensive programs would be on this campus using the labs over here. So that's of interest. We do need to find a way to really promote opportunities for careers in STEM fields in Santa Fe. I think a lot of people don't realize the opportunities are really there for some good paying jobs in this region. We have had a articulation agreement, and New Mexico State University has tried to offer their engineering technology program up here for 3 years, and I don't know that we've ever had a student. So they're pulling out. We've had 2.
We've had 2.
So they can't afford to offer a program for 2 students. So we're continuing to work on that, and I think we need to do a lot of work in our community to promote those opportunities in those STEM fields.
And Madam Chair, I just finished by saying that Chair Keith hosted a conference a month or so ago, but a LANL conference, which several of us attended, and downtown, and what I brought away from that was that LANL's hiring, and they're hiring big time, and they're looking at substantial retirements, and in 3 different categories of hiring. Scientists and physicists, of course, are typically what they're thought of as the core. They weren't hiring as many of those as they were of the mid-level technical personnel, and it was almost on a 2-to-1 scale, as I recall. And so it's these support personnel, both technical and even just maintenance type personnel who are maybe trained in plumbing, or maybe trained in welding, or maybe trained in a number of these services that LANL uses every day. They have a real need for that. I mean, we've got a welding laboratory over there that will blow you away, So we have a real opportunity up on the hill there to jump out in front and solve that exciting challenge that the LANL director gave us at that meeting. And so I'm just hopeful that we can do that.
One of the HEC advisory committee members represents LANL and Land. So that's a good thing, of course. We've also had we've had meetings separately, SFCC and New Mexico Highlands, and we've also now had joint meetings, SFCC and New Mexico Highlands, with that new articulation agreement for the 2 tracks and the computer information. In fact, there's even hope, we have not gotten very far in these conversations at all, that perhaps SFCC and New Mexico Highlands University together could even go out for a grant to help speed up, or use the funds to help make that work come more quickly and efficiently. We don't know if that will happen, but those are exactly the kinds of discussions, because we're hearing exactly the same thing.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions from board members? Member Romero?
I have a comment first and a question. This is great material, and I think it gives us a lot of things to work from. One of my questions to you is, I wonder if we've considered, with some of the institutions that are not bringing enough of their programs out, doing some kind of a survey perhaps, or something to gather feedback about what programs do they have on their main campuses that people here would like to have. Because it seems to me that there are programs, for example, art at UNM, that there are a lot of people here who would like access to it, but we don't have a way of gauging how many, what the interest would be in this area, or in other areas where there are really top programs that those institutions offer that people here might really be interested in. I don't know whether it would be something that we could do through a newspaper survey, for example, or something, because what we need to do is we need to reach those people who don't know that this could be a possibility. Anyway, I just wonder if, as you talk to your advisory committees, if that might be something that that might be useful.
Yes, Board Member Romero, one of the reasons that we would like to ask for an extension and delve into this a little bit more is to be able to have I personally was hoping to have some one-on-one conversations with the partner institutions to get some of that feedback. I understand what you're saying is even broader than that, but to delve more into what they see as the needs, and also in response to Board Member Sullivan, to look more within the business community and to get a better understanding. We've spent a lot of time looking at workforce data, but also to go to those individual companies and begin to get a better picture of just what the needs are in the community.
Those feasibility studies, in some ways, we respond, and our partner institutions respond from what we think is a market here. And it may be that there are markets here for programs that we don't have, and that we have not considered offering. Psychology, for example, might be one. I mean, we are in desperate need in this city and in the state for good therapists, for good counselors, and there is nowhere that they can go here to get that. Well, there's a small private institution, but it's that kind of thing. So the feasibility study could really tell us where we're blind to opportunities.
Thank you, Board Member Romero. So I'll say two things to that. The first response is Highlands is looking about bringing counseling here. Highlands has just extended, I'm assuming I'm allowed to talk about this. Highlands has recently, not only are they extending their partnership with us, they are extending their reach. They have signed an agreement now. They will have 3 additional dedicated classroom spaces. That is how much they have grown and how much they anticipate being able to grow in the next 2 years with the additional programs they'll be bringing, including counseling. So this is a good thing. So yes, I think this goes back to what Julie was saying, which is, I think you're right. We don't always know exactly what we might need. So thinking about all the different tools that we can use, those one-on-ones, and looking at different options for how we can get a little bit more of that information. One of the interesting things that came out of that HEC Advisory Committee meeting was, we have people who are in the industry sitting in the room. And for example, someone from the Home Builders Association said, that's not right. And we're presenting workforce data. And, he's like, well, but, here are the factors that tell you why that's the number. And that's really not the number. And so I think we need to really make sure that we're not just looking at one piece of data. We're getting their feedback, community feedback, industry feedback, and what we think based on the information that we have.
Thank you.
Madam Chair. So I would just, counseling is one thing, but what we really need is behavioral therapists, trained behavioral therapists. That's the biggest need that we have in the healthcare in the state of New Mexico. We have 56 beds for behavioral health at the state, and we're short tremendously. I'm on the board of one of the behavioral health programs in Santa Fe, and we have 12 therapists that are licensed, and we need double that. We have a long waiting list of clients that are in need of behavioral health therapy.
Thank you.
So one other comment that I'll just, as we talk about what the needs are going to be moving forward in terms of degrees, and we have those, conversations with existing businesses about what currently their needs are, something that I think maybe we haven't thought all the way through, and it may be worth eliciting in our partners is, as Los Alamos National Lab goes through a hiring spurt and hires more people, it's probably going to displace people who are currently in the market. So I'll give you an example. Jack is an engineer. He does engineering work. Right now, he may have a full staff and have everybody that he needs, but when the largest employer in the region starts hiring up, he may lose 3 people from his staff that move on to other jobs. So I think there's going to be, there has the potential to be a shift in that market coming up that our current employers may not be thinking about at this point. So just a point to keep in mind as we start those discussions, to look at what the projections are for the laboratory in terms of what their needs are, and then have conversations with local businesses too about, do you have needs, if you lost people in this area, do you think it would be hard to replace them or not?
Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? No? Thank you so much for your presentation tonight. We appreciate it. Good information.
And just real quick before I leave, so are we okay with adjusting the timeline just a little bit? Sounds like it. Thank you.
Next on the agenda, election of officers.
Madam Chair, there's an agenda item in the book. We have our usual rotation. So the vice chair becomes the chair. So that means Dr. Martha Romero is at the slate to become the chair. Linda Siegel would become the vice chair. We need to select a secretary. And as the most senior member, following our normal process, as the senior member, Pablo Cedillo would be nominated for the position of secretary.
Do I hear a motion nominating the slate?
So moved.
Motion has been made to nominate the slate. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor of accepting the slate of officers, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So,
It's kind
Madam
of
Chair,
hard to second a motion when you're on the slate, but we don't have any other option.
so, Madam Chair, if I may, Victoria asked me, I was the secretary of the governing board, and she came up and said, Pablo, what do you do as a secretary? Do you take notes? I said, no.
You sign things.
Besides them.
So now you have a new set of paperwork to sign.
That's right.
Congratulations. Any other informational items from the board? If not, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second?
Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. So now,
We don't have to change the gavel tonight. It's the same person.
so now we proceed on with the Santa Fe Community College regular governing board meeting. We do have a quorum for the meeting tonight. Member Siegel is not with us this evening. She is excused from the meeting tonight, but we still have a quorum. So welcome to the SFCC board meeting. Do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda?
Madam Chair, we have one change to the agenda, and that is under tab C, final readings, remove policy 1-4.
Any other changes or a motion to accept the
So moved.
Second?
motion is made and seconded? Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries. Agenda is adopted. Next on the agenda, public comments. Do we have any public comments? Okay. Okay. Thank you. No public comments this evening. The President's report and presentations.
Madam Chair, we'll start with the Employee of the Month awards. I don't know if anybody is here for those, but to pass it forward this month, Michael Brito, who we saw last month, nominated Rafael Treviso, who's from Palm's ground crew. I don't believe either one of them are here.
Michael Brito. He said, I will not be able to make the meeting this week. I will be teaching my suspension class until 5:15 and then have to pick up my daughters by 5:30. I was very surprised and honored to receive the Pass It Forward award last month. It was a very nice honor, and my friend Raphael, I am happy to nominate my friend Raphael, who truly deserves recognition for his hard work and for being a great father and member of the SFCC ground crew staff.
And the Wildgram, Valerie Grimley nominated Veronica Hernandez. I don't believe either one of them.
I have a statement from Veronica. They were not able to be here either. Veronica said, I am humbled and honored to be recognized for my work here at SFCC. I was thrilled with happiness when I was notified of the WOW Award. It was such a surprise. Thank you, Valerie Grimley, and thanks, SFCC staff.
Thank you. Just a couple items from my President's Report that's in your book I want to highlight. Number one, we will be participating in the Pride Parade and events on the plaza this Saturday. We recently participated with the Chamber of Commerce and the City of Santa Fe for the Business Awards. And once again, I think this is the 8th year in a row. Santa Fe Community College is the sponsor of the Green Business of the Year Award, and this year's award went to Tomasita's Restaurant. I'd also like to announce that we had 2 interim deans and 1 regular dean, and we now have 3 regular deans. And Bernadette Jacobs and Camila Bustamante, who is back there, were formally selected and named and have accepted the position permanently that they've been serving in on an interim basis. So we're glad to have them permanently with us. Just a couple other things. Our dental department chair, Amna Nayar, presented recently at the New Mexico Dental Association. Our welding instructor, Jake Lovato, was chosen to participate in the American Welding Society Institute, basically representing, I think, 5 states from this region. That was a great honor, and he gets all expenses paid to attend some training. And our AVP for Planning and Institutional Effectiveness, Yasha Morimoto, recently presented at the Association for Institutional Research Forum. That's the highlights on my President's Report. We have a enrollment report. And Dr. Gonzalez, she's not leaving us fully, but this is her last meeting as the Vice President for Student Success. So we talked her into doing the enrollment report one more time. But I personally want to thank Carmen for all she's done over the past few years. We'll have a little more formal recognition on another date. But I do want to say I wouldn't have made it through the issues that took place when I became president if I hadn't had the support and backing of Carmen Gonzalez as we went through some rough times a little over 3 years ago. So, Carmen, thank you so much.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, President Grissom, yes, it is my last meeting. I'm not too sad about that, really. Although I have really enjoyed this board, I'm really impressed with how dedicated you all are, and I appreciate how much energy you put into this school. So thank you. Anyway, the enrollment report. Summer term, we actually, on June 17th, we dropped 216 students for non-payment, or if they hadn't paid at least 50% of their tuition. And so I think actually the numbers are holding pretty steady, and we are re-enrolling students this week, so these numbers will change, but I think that they look pretty good. And if we hadn't disenrolled those students, we would have 203 more than what we had last year at this time. So I think we're doing pretty good this summer. Fall is a different story. But I still think we're doing pretty good at this time, that we're only about 11% down. I mean, the semester hasn't even started, and we, as you know, each semester dual credit comes in a little bit later. We have those midterm courses, so there's a lot of opportunity to grow. So you may actually even be, I think, anticipating 6% down this next year. It may be less than that, so hopefully it will be. And the detailed report, so on the back of your summer, you know, it's pretty much what it's looked like for the last few months. What I don't understand is why there's 0 in veterans. And I got this kind of late, and I was in a meeting, in a conference all day today for credit for prior learning. And so I didn't get a chance to question this. So I'm not sure. I know there's veteran students enrolled this summer, so I'm not sure why that's 0. And one of the things that I had asked is if we could have a little bit more information on this detailed report. However, they don't have snapshots of these exact things for a date and time like they do on the other side. Does that make sense? So they have started capturing it, so probably 6 or 8 months from now, you'll be able to compare things on this more detailed report. Right now, we're just looking at it today. We're not looking at it how it looked like last year or, so I think that will improve in the future. But I think we're okay for this summer. Any questions on this? Yes.
Madam Chair, Carmen, just a clarification. These are only credit students, is that correct?
Yes. Member Sullivan, it's only credit courses. Continuing ed is a whole other thing.
Yeah, and about the same number of students, I believe, correct?
It's about the same number of students.
So if these are all credit courses, and you have 564, 65 plus, are they taking one course? Or
Which one are you looking at? I'm sorry.
I'm looking at the registered head count, the detailed one.
Detailed?
And if you look at them by age, the head count for 65 plus is 564, which is almost the second largest population. What kind of courses are they taking?
Well,
I'll answer that. They're going to be mostly in the fitness center and the arts programs.
But aren't those continuing? They're not necessarily continuing ed? Okay.
And you know that the state has that policy that if you're 65 or older, you can take a course for $5 a credit hour.
Right.
So I think we have a lot of seniors doing that. A lot of them are auditing classes. A lot of them are lifelong learners.
So what percentage do you think are from the fitness center?
50%?
50%? I don't know.
How much? 10%? We've looked at it before. It varies by semester and to semester because of the summertime. A lot of people take vacation and go away. So, we have looked at some of this data for regular semesters more so than summer semesters. There is more non-credit going on this summer than there is the rest of the year.
That's not reflected.
That's not reflected here.
Right.
Any other questions on enrollment? I just want to thank Dr. Gonzalez for all the work she's done on behalf of Santa Fe Community College and our students.
Thank you very much.
See them grow and the investment that you've made here in improving the student services and helping our students succeed.
Well, that was my plan or my role. I feel like I've improved the area, and I'm leaving it in a better place than when I found it. So.
And Madam Chair, just to remind you, she will be staying on with us part-time as the principal investigator of the very large TACT grant. So we will still be taking advantage of her capabilities.
And we had a credit for prior learning conference the last day and a half, and tomorrow we have an IBEST conference. So we're very busy with that grant, and I'm looking forward to being focused on kind of one thing. Although TACT is pretty complex, it's not just one thing, but it's a little bit more focused. So.
We'll have to ask you for monthly updates at the board.
Oh, I don't think so. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carmen.
Madam Chair, now I'd like to ask Emily Stern to come up to give you a little bit of an update on the Center for Diversity and Integrated Learning. You do have something in your book that she put together beforehand, and I understand we lost the PowerPoint presentation, so it'll be a verbal presentation.
Yes, that is what occurred. How shall I begin?
Just do a quick summary of what the CDIL is and highlight a couple of things you mentioned in here, and then the board may have some specific questions.
All right. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Thank you for having me here tonight. I apologize for not having the PowerPoint. It was not on the jump drive. So the CDIL is It's a collaborative, I'm just going to read from my report, actually. The CDIL is a collaborates with internal and external partners, including students, and strives to develop informed and sustainable diversity and equity-centered programming to educate, facilitate, demonstrate, promote, and cultivate a culture of equity. And this is done through events, and it's done through a variety of different kinds of trainings. It's done through looking at policy and looking at initiatives, and the collaborative piece, the piece where we really take time to have an authentic process to better understand, represent, and support what is going on at our school is key. I was able to create some data with the evaluations from the hiring panel workshops with the help of Julie Gallegos and Opie, and that is in front of you. So that's not something that you'd seen previously in my report that I submitted. But I was really excited to see that the response was very positive. And on page 5, I was especially excited to see that the highest numbers were in response to the participants they had increased motivation to learn more and increased motivation to take action. So that's what I think we're looking for. So I was very happy about that.
Madam Chair, just
Madam Chair, I have-
let me, if I could just add one thing to that. You know, I think one of the things that we've unfortunately been able to do the past year is take advantage of events that are happening in our society and address some of those issues both internally and for our community. And I think that has may not have been part of the original plan, but it has given us an opportunity, and I think that is one of the areas where is inspiring people to get more informed and to take action. And I think having that occur through the Center for Integrated Learning, Diversity and Integrated Learning, and the follow-up will help us move forward.
One of my questions as I read your report, which was excellent, by the way,
Thank
was what's the difference between the president's Diversity Advisory Committee and the CDIL?
Well, that may be up for interpretation, but what I see as the difference is that the advisory council is, first of all, comprised of students, external partners, as well as faculty and staff. And PDAC is comprised of faculty and staff. So that's the first difference that I can think of. The second is that when we invited people to participate on the advisory council, we explained that it would in fact be a working group. We would be meeting once every 2 weeks, and we would be creating something together. And so we were hoping to have a lot of participation, and also created parameters for people to be able to come in and out, yet send input in multiple ways and participate in the conversation. So those are 2 ways. Additionally, because the center is supposed to create a lot of professional development and support around areas related to equity in an effort to bolster student success and employee engagement and satisfaction, we really needed to have a lot of input from multiple places about what those trainings should consist of, because doing that kind of assessment in a vacuum is dangerous and at times just wasting money and people's time. So,
Madam Chair, if I could add to that, there is some overlap between the membership, not total overlap, but Emily and I have been talking It may come a time that these two get merged, so we don't have to have two different groups. But PDAC is spelled out in policy at the present time, so we do have to do it, but we may come back and change that.
I see.
Madam Chair.
Yes. Member.
Emily, I also want to compliment you on the report. I think that it's really very inclusive as opposed to being exclusive. And I think the other thing you need to be commended for is your outreach in the community as well, your involvement. It's not only internal, but it's external. And I would add one other word to equity, and that would be justice. I think that that word is what, to me, should be in here, because that's what we're about and what this college represents to the community. So I would encourage you to continue with what you're doing. The corazón, I think, is the proper word for it as well. So give it a lot of heart.
Thank you so much, Board Member Cedillo. A little nervous.
You know, I noticed that your comments are fairly general, but as a Hispanic serving institution, I don't see any reference at all in your report to what activities you might be engaging, which I suspect you are, with this. But I was struck by the fact that that it was absent, and so I wondered if you'd comment on that.
Certainly. That may be in part because I could answer that if I were to be asked, as you are asking me now, but like for a report or something like that, I could make these connections or demonstrate exactly how this supports a Hispanic serving institution. What you're seeing in this report is that because it was a group process and because this group from the get-go acknowledged intersectionality, so looking at things through the lens of intersectionality as being essential and valuable, and as part of our core goals, one of our core goals, it's not mentioned because it's ideally supposed to be making a comprehensive impact that is relevant to all participants is the hope.
Well, I can appreciate that. And
Yeah.
I think your report does that really well. I guess one of the concerns that I have, though, if 47% of our students are Hispanic and many of them are dual language speakers, it seems to me that as a Hispanic serving institution, it behooves us to have some activity that honors that. And I don't know, you may have it.
Well, I think some of these have been very focused on Hispanic communities, or there's been shared leadership by folks who are Hispanic and therefore have participated in the creation of the event so that it is relevant to a variety of communities, and I imagine to theirs as well, as a stakeholder. And so there has been an eye on creating programming or showing films, for instance, with the Campus Crossroads events. Those films are typically discussed by the advisory committee. The last film, for instance, for Pride Week was about an indigenous transgender woman who was from New Zealand, but her indigeneity played a large role in what she did in the world, and she became a parliament member in New Zealand. So there's an eye on hoping to create relevant material. There was for the Women's Month, for International Women's Awareness Month and History Month, there was a movie related to bullfighting, and it was related to women bullfighters. And so there's curriculum that goes with that specifically discusses how it breaks different taboos within the communities there that have the bullfighting, which includes Hispanic communities. So in that way, there have been, and there are upcoming events as well.
Yeah, I'm pushing you a little bit because
Bring it, that's fine.
It seems to me that one of the things that an institution like this is looked to from the outside is, and particularly by those institutions who don't have the population that we serve, but are trying to serve the few people that they have in that population, and trying to serve them well, and trying to serve them not as marginalized people, but as core to the community. It seems to me that we have an opportunity at this institution to be able to broadcast and to highlight activities that are integrated and that do in fact affirm and honor that population.
I completely agree with you. Thank you, Board Member Romero. The areas where I have a little more input and control, I have, for instance, the Corazon deck is bilingual. The Que Pasa chalkboard is almost always written, the questions are written in Spanish and in English. So the areas where I feel like I can make a universal or unilateral decision about the programming, I feel comfortable doing that, and my eye is always on what it is, on serving our students and representing our students. Yeah. And I will look at all of the different ways that maybe I can focus more on that in the future.
I think promoting what you do in that area is what other community colleges are looking for. And they're looking for it, and they want to have some specific things about how you work with our population. Thank you
very much.
I just have one real quick question. Along those same lines, the participation of the Hispanic community, is it encouraged, or are they fully participating in the diversity program?
It appears so. It appears that a lot of people are participating in it. It appears that they are. I mean, they attend events. It's difficult because I don't know exactly how people identify, but yes, my answer would be yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Member Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the work session, I commented briefly on the award dinner that was held by the foundation for our
Kyle Joe.
what's his name?
Kyle Joe.
Kyle, right? Who won the award in the culinary arts?
I'm sorry.
It was for Cal Pacheco.
Oh, did I say Kyle Joe? You're right. I apologize. Thank you, President Grisham.
And I commented on having dinner with the chair of the English faculty and having an animated discussion over the use of commas. And I also mentioned that it was a pleasure to also have dinner with Emily during that award dinner, and so as a result, I learned, I think, some very important things about what she's hoping to do, what her personal goals are, and most importantly, I think in this position, her personality. I think that is a big key to coalescing what it is that you hope to achieve. So I enjoyed that, and it was a pleasure to have dinner with you.
Thank you so much, Board Member Sullivan. Feeling was mutual.
So one quick question for me. What do you do to embed the conversation about diversity in the class for incoming freshmen that everybody's required to take? Do we do that at this point? Are there plans to do it in the future?
It's an excellent question. I have not looked at the recent current curriculum for the FYSS classes. However, my understanding is that that is one of the goals in that course. So I'm not sure. But I look forward to looking at the curriculum, I'm sure sometime soon.
Great.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Madam
Any
Chair.
other questions? Ms. Stern? Thank you for your time and your report. We appreciate it and the work you do.
Thank you very much. Thank all of you.
Madam Chair, that concludes that section.
Great. I think the Faculty Senate report is next. Is anybody here from the Faculty Senate? No, not tonight. I see Staff Senate. Barb is waiting.
Good evening, Chair Keith, board, members of the board, and President Grissom. It's lovely to be here with you again today and not outside where it's too hot. You have the minutes before you for our 2 May meetings, and I presume that you've read them, so I will field any questions about that. I just wanted to give you a couple of highlights of things that we're doing outside of the board meetings. We've been meeting with the incoming officers. We've actually had some regular meetings with the current officers and the incoming officers to discuss roles and responsibilities, the duties of each position, how we're aligning ourselves across campus to get better participation. We've kind of seen a slight increase over the year, but then it flatlined a little bit. One of the things we were excited about is that we've seen some male members of the staff start to join us, and that was a little bit exciting since it tends to be more female. And we're definitely encouraging that. So that's one of those things we're not really sure how to market the Staff Senate, but we're trying to come up with some solutions. Additionally, before the faculty left in May, Zuby, who is the new chair, approached me and said, I want to do some more collaboration between Faculty Senate and Staff Senate. And we're very excited about that opportunity. So I'm sure as soon as he returns, I'll be having some meetings with he and his fellow officers to discuss how we want to work together. Part of what we've discussed internally with the Staff Senate officers is that there seems to have been a division for a long time, and we really want to break down those walls and come together as a full body of employees and have even a stronger voice, and to align the things that we're wanting and hoping to achieve, not only for ourselves, but for the community and for the students, and really to have, to be mission-minded, because I think often we lose sight of that. We know why we're here, but so often we get mired down in the day-to-day, and we lose sight of that a little bit. So that's part of my hope, is that we can develop some collaboration that's going to help move us towards that effort and find a way to work together instead of feeling like we're at odds in some places. So that's pretty much it. Do you have any questions for me?
No, that's excellent.
Okay.
No questions? No further questions?
Okay.
The board?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your report, for coming tonight. Student government.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, Mr. President, members of the board, as you know, we do not have a lot going on over the summer, purely because there are fewer students around, therefore we would have meetings consisting of like 4 people. So since that's not happening, I don't have too much to report. You don't see any minutes from us. Today, however, I did train our incoming president-elect, Mark Conda. You saw him at the work session as well, and he is looking forward to getting into this. He's also trained as a historian, just in case, because at the moment, we do not have one, and we wanted to take some of the load off of our advisor, Janet Berry, over here. So in the next few weeks, I will be putting the finishing touches on our textbook lending program. I will make sure that I get in the appropriate materials next week to give you guys a full presentation on the program, although I've been giving you information as we've gone along. But I think it's important that the board know the full extent of what we're trying to do and that everybody be on the same page. So that will be prepared for you next month, and in the meantime, I stand for any questions.
Great. Any questions from the board? No? Thank you for your report. Next on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda. We have taken off the consent agenda policy 1-4. But we have still on the consent agenda minutes from the April 27th, May 25th, work sessions, and the regular board meeting of May 25th. Matters related to SFCC policy retirement for policies on employment of regular employees, employment of contract employees, college property, and the SFCC logo. And then final readings on policies on academic freedom, intellectual property, fraud, employment status, technology uses, college branding, and information security. Do I hear a motion to accept or approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. So removed from the consent agenda was policy 1-4, the governing board code of conduct.
And actually, we just removed that from the agenda, so it's,
Okay.
it's off the agenda.
It's off the agenda altogether. All right. Next, item 9 are actions on the non-consent agenda and the approval of the financial report. Mr. Tejas. There he is.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, President Grissom. In front of you, you do have the financial report for the month ended May 31, 2016. Just a few highlights from that report that I'd like to point out. We had submitted our budget adjustment request number 1 to the State Higher Education Department, and HED has approved it. However, it's going through another process with the Department of Finance and Administration, and so our bar isn't fully approved at this point, but it's on its way. At the end of May, we had $4.1 million in our operating bank account. That's compared to $5 million last year. The main difference, or the major difference in the change, is that we had expedited state appropriation funding last year that we had received, so we'll catch up in that respect at the end of this year. Because of that, ING revenues are down $329,000. That's 1% compared to the prior year. Our expenses are up $522,000. That's 2%, and that's primarily due to salary reinstatements. Electric utilities are down $250,000. That's a result of the solar array complex. In your management discussion and analysis in your packets, we pointed out that since we are nearing the end of the year, June 30th is the end of our fiscal year, the actual expenses that have been identified, and that is that pie chart that you've seen, 88% of all of our budgeted expenditures go towards the classroom and also student-related services. So I wanted to definitely point that out. We had 18% in expenditures to institutional support, 51% to instruction, 9% to academic support, and 10% to student services. In the financial report, you'll notice that the public service fund looks pretty positive. That had always been closely monitored in the past, but we're seeing a positive financial position within the Kids Campus Fund, as well as the HEC and the Conference Center. So with that, that's all I have. I can stand for any questions.
Great, thank you. Questions from the board?
We discussed that pretty thoroughly, it seems to me.
No questions from the board. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I so move.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded for approval of financial report. Is there discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. approval of updated SFCC 5-year institutional plan. Mr. Mignardo.
Thank you all. Good evening, Chairman, members of the board, President Grissom. Thank you for this opportunity to present to you. Really appreciate the opportunity to give you some insight as to the capital outlay requests and our planning process. As part of the state's statutory requirements and our New Mexico Administrative Code, which we adhere to 100% compliance, we are required to submit a capital outlay request for recommendations. There's 3 primary sources of funding for capital outlay that we rely on. General obligation bonds, state general obligation bonds, which we submitted last year for, we asked for $2 million. We were recommended for $1.5 million. That will be going through the general election this fall, and hopefully vote yes. I appreciate if you all would vote yes. And of course, it'll get appropriated by our legislature in the 2017 legislative session, and hope to receive funding appropriation soon after. The other option we have is our state severance tax bonds, and of course our local general obligation bonds. With regards to our severance tax bonds, we are requesting part of the funding request we provide as part of the state statutes and administrative code is to provide a capital outlay request. And part of that capital outlay request is the institutional 5-year plan, along with about a half dozen other state-specific document requirements that we have to fulfill. So I'd like to draw your attention, you put up that slide, yeah. So let's see, back up one if you would. Okay. So I'll give you a preface to the 5-year plan. A lot of this information I present to the state, and a lot of this information I get from Yash, and it's a lot to do with our academic performance and some of our enrollment data. Go ahead and change the slide. So I'll skip through that because a lot of you are very familiar with that. And we'll get right into our capital outlay. It's go down to where the pictures are, if you will. So let me start with this slide. This slide, that's okay. Along with our 5-year institutional plan, which I'm asking you all for approval this evening, that institutional, and there's other requirements that are specified by state code to fulfill in terms of submitting for capital requests for New Mexico higher education this fall. And one of those is our institutional 5-year plan. And with that institutional 5-year plan, we identify the projects that we have completed in the last 10 years, the projects that are in process, those that are pending funding, and those that are new requests. And so as soon as we get to those project requests, I'll show you the projects that are in progress and some of our completions, and then I'll go into what we're asking for in the future. So this slide identifies some of the projects that were included in our previous request funding and some of the progress we've made. That picture to your left is the replacement of the kids campus chiller. That was a $90,000 project. That crane just lifted that chiller into place 2 weeks ago. It's a brand new chiller, so we should be in full operation with HVAC, heating, cooling, and ventilation in the kids campus for the next 20 years. To your right is the campus center courtyards. We just redid that courtyard, brand new terraced cement terracing there. We're going to, we've planted new flowers in there. We've redid those steps, and this is right outside the north side of the campus center. So we essentially redid that entire step and platform and all the planting and the retaining wall. It was crumbling up and in disrepair. To the right of that, we have the safety curb and gutters that we added to the fitness center. So we added a new access point for ADA, and that's the final result there. We've just completed the carpeting at the marketing and public relations area, so they all have brand new carpeting. That's another picture of the chiller in place. We have completed 2 labs, brand new laboratories at the TATC, and there's a picture of one of them. It's Bioscience Lab number 1. And to the right of that is our biomass boiler. We upgraded our boiler system with all new tubing. That was about a $75,000 project. So those are completed projects within the last 3 months that we're doing with the funding we're asking for the state and some of our severance tax bond funding. Next slide, please. So getting down into the nuts and bolts of this approval request, this is our institutional 5-year plan. It's a mandate from our statutory requirements and our New Mexico Administrative Code. Again, the latter part of this document identifies projects that have been completed. The center part are the projects that are in progress and those that are pending funding, like the one I just described, the general obligation bond for 2016, hopefully get appropriated in 2017. And then ultimately are the 2 projects that we're requesting for severance tax funding from the state this year. And our priority, and that would be these 2 projects. Our priority number 1 project is we're asking for $4 million. And that's for critical infrastructure repairs, learning space improvements, campus-wide code and safety improvements. The second priority project, we're asking for, again, infrastructure improvements and also some funding for our advanced trades and advanced technology phase 2 and some additional design projects that we want to continue some programming on. These projects are identified to the state. We're asking for $4 million on our priority 1. As I referred to in our last submittal, we asked for $2 million and we received $1.5 million. So this time we're asking for $4 million and hope to receive $3.5 million. A little optimistic there. But no, it's a generous request. It's going to allow us to upgrade a lot of our plant, a lot of our facilities, and hopefully allow us to take place in precedence for programming our next 5 to 10 years. Along with this information, we submit this to the New Mexico Higher Education Department in June. We are going to have our hearings in July. If this project is approved, it will go forward to the state legislature this spring, and hopefully we'll see appropriated funding for this project as well. At this point, I stand for any questions.
Madam Chair, just to add to that, as we discussed in the work session, all these projects are on that master list of projects that you have approved, of totaling more than $10 million, of which we approved about $2.7 million, I believe, for this fiscal year from a variety of sources. So these all are those same projects, now just packaged, trying to get state funding to support us.
Yes, just to elaborate on the President's comment, you all are fairly familiar with what we call the master list. And this list has identified out through 2018 the projects we're going to coordinate and the projects we hope to complete. And of course, we have funding through 2016, and now we're looking to secure the funding for 2017 and ultimately 2018. And so these projects that are identified within the institutional 5-year plan are taken directly from our list. And of course, our list is updated on an annual basis and will come to you for approval on an annual basis. And we're going through a master planning process now on campus to get input from students in the community, so that will also be included into this list as well.
Madam Chair, I move approval of the updated SFCC 5-year institutional plan.
Motion is made. Do I hear a second?
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next on the agenda, the approval of the SGA budget. Ms. Berry.
Good evening again, Madam Chair, board members, President Grissom, and Victoria Hypes, ex officio. I didn't realize I was going to be doing this, but we did go over the budget at the working session. And of course, it was brought up we would never spend more than what there is, because you just don't do that, according to my dad. We can go over, oh good, I'm glad you have that. We can go over that. When we were looking at the SGA student conferences, I was thinking about that because it was kind of carried forward from the last president, President Torres Longo. And SGA actually did have an Earth Week conference, not this year, but last year, and it was really big. We had a big luncheon. Mark Nelson, I believe, was the speaker. And so normally, I've been in this position since 2012. That was the only SGA conference that I recall. So again, that can be played with or not spent. And unfortunately, our team has not had much professional development other than here on campus, not that that's not great, or at IEIA, but they have not traveled. My point was the SGA conferences is not to go to conferences, but to sponsor conferences here on campus for our students. But because they have allotted money for the ambassador conferences, which I work in that department, Ernest Kavanaugh being my boss, the director of student development, we always have conferences out of our department, and that's what that will pay for. Mason, can you go down just a little bit, please? Thanks. To show I thought the ambassador conferences, where are those?
Then $8,000.
Oh yeah, there it is, sorry. The $8,000, so the ambassadors also have a small budget to help with the conferences, and then we supplement however we can help. But do you have any questions?
Madam Chair, just to help out a little bit, we did review this and discuss it at the work session. As the president, I'm going to recommend approval of this budget. It does exceed the amount that they are bringing in this year. They are aware of that, and we know that. They do have carryover funds that would be sufficient. I think we will need to work closely with SGA this next year to start figuring out if our credit hours are staying about where they are. You're going to have to start backing your budget down because you'll use up all your savings and be in the hole. But with the carryover monies from previous years that are available to SGA and from what they want to do this year, my recommendation is to approve this, knowing that they will go into their reserves for about $14,000.
I would move approval.
Motion's been made to approve the SGA budget. Is there a second?
A second.
Any discussion?
Pablo has a question.
Member Cedillo, did you have a question?
No, I was going to.
Okay.
He was going to make the
I
motion.
was going to make a motion to approve.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much. We'll invite you to one of our big events,
All right.
if not more.
Is there a fee?
Pardon?
Is there a fee for board members?
No, it'll be free. Might have to do a little dishwashing or something.
Thank you, Jan.
Just don't make it more than $25.
RPSP.
Next is approval of the RPSP funding proposals.
And we have Ann Black.
Madam President, members of the board, President Grissom, I'm here to ask for your approval for the college to apply for RPS funding to the Higher Education Department this fall. Before you are 7 RPSP proposals. Are there any questions that you have that were not discussed at the work session?
Madam Chair, just for the sake of anybody who may be watching online or on TV, we are seeking funding to support our automotive technician program, the New Mexico Filmmakers Academy, our greenhouse management and controlled environment agriculture program, the Small Business Development Center statewide program, nursing education, radiologic technology program, and the home visiting hub. All of those except for the New Mexico Filmmakers Academy and the Home Visiting Hub have been previously funded. In some cases, we're asking for an increase in funding. In some cases, we're asking for the same amount that we requested last year and hoping that we get the 2.5% cut restored that was given last year. We do have some people in the audience if you have any questions about specific. We have the radiologic SBDC program and maybe automotive represented. Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Member Cedillo.
I move that we approve.
Motion has been made to approve the RPSP
RPSP, right?
proposals. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
Call the question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you all, and thank you for those who came to provide additional information.
Mike, you're the only person dressed appropriately tonight. It's hot. Next up, we have the laundry.
Laundry supply agreement?
Laundry.
Laundry?
Laundry.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, President Grissom. We come before you to request your approval of a contract with the laundry supply. I'll turn it over to Ed Ibarra to discuss in detail the specifics of the contract.
That may have gone off. Did the mic go off?
I think the mic is off. The mic goes off.
If you tap the end of it, the other end, yeah. I think there's a button there.
Management recommending the board approval for laundry supply agreement. This agreement for 5 years. Total estimate cost about $550,000. The contract for a year will be approximately $110,000.
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Any questions?
So are we going to get 25% off?
Actually, we're going to get more than that.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, sir.
Tell me.
We were buying the janitorial supplies from Laundry Supply, Brady Industries, Western Paper, India Office Supply, and other organizations on an ad hoc situation. Purchasing office saw opportunity for cost savings, cost containment, and cost avoidance. And, so pursuant to the procurement code, we did go out and did a request for proposal. And upon review of the contract, it was determined that we're getting approximately 19% additional cost savings from the contract that we were using for laundry supply, which was at a 25% discount for the items and products that were in the request for proposal. So, yes, we're getting close to 20%.
Close to 25.
Additional.
Well, we can work on that, right?
We're trying.
Is the vendor local? And did we get any bids? Did we get any bids from local companies?
We only got from Albuquerque vendors, but with the request for proposal, we gives the opportunity to prepare an open competition, which allows access for any vendor to be able to respond to the request for proposal. So, I mean, we could have easily used the APS contract and entered into contract with the vendor or a state contract, but to allow the opportunity for local vendors to respond, we chose to do a request for proposal.
Thank you for that.
But actually what we're doing is just bundling, right?
Well, what we're doing, we're trying to maximize the dollar spent. And we're entering into a contract with one vendor.
That's right.
With the hopes that our commitment to them is that we're going to buy all the laundry supplies from that one particular vendor.
Okay.
So we're, all of the RFP responses were bundling or not?
Well, we identified 6 high-volume products that Santa Fe Community College uses, and that's what we went out for bid.
I see.
The other products or services that we ended up doing, we went and asked the vendor, or working with POM, we identified using last year's data or procurements of other products and services that are like onesies and twosies, 3s and 4s, not high volume. And we added those to the contract as well at a discounted price. Not using volume, that was more of a,
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's good.
Madam Chair and members of the board, if I could just add, through the efforts of Ed and Nick and the purchasing department, by doing what we're doing, we feel like we're going to save probably hundreds of thousands of dollars for the college on various contracts. By going through the process that we hadn't been doing in the past, we've been just piggybacking on other contracts rather than doing our own, and doing long-term arrangements. We're getting much better prices. So we actually think we're going to be saving maybe several $100,000 a year from what we've been paying in the most recent years.
In this particular agreement, one of the strategies that we're implementing is to hold firm pricing for first 2 years or 3 years, with the intent of, from the budget perspective and from the end user perspective, in this case Henry, he would be able to know the total cost of ownership or predict for
Mm-hmm.
the cost of ownership, because all the prices will be known for the term of 5 years.
Right.
He's not gonna be surprised.
So the state of New Mexico did the same thing several years ago, except they contract with somebody from out of state.
Sorry?
They contracted with someone from out of state. So it's a smart thing.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, just to follow up, when we do these proposals, it does give the local community the opportunity to compete. We do everything we can to encourage the local community to compete for these contracts, and with also making sure that we are committed to fairness and equity.
Sure.
Sure.
So I guess the question on the other side of that is, are there any local businesses who will be losing their contracts as a result of us going into this bundled method with probably a bigger supplier?
No,
Great, thank you.
we would have worked with them to ensure that was not the case.
Okay, thanks.
And Madam Chair, we want to thank Henry and his group, and he's going to get the rigor. They worked really hard on this and pulled through a lot of data and really took a close look at every single one of our expenses to try to save money and get the best value.
Thank you.
Our two groups tend to complement each other. I was extremely excited about capital, both Navy and advisors. So between the two of us, we stretched that vendor just as far as they can go.
That's good.
In any contract negotiations, it's always good to show united front and funds and purchasing, and as well as IT and other vendors and other departments that we're working with. You know, we have meetings to agree on what we're gonna ask of the vendor and to ensure that we show united front. And that's how we're achieving many of the successes that we are achieving through the process.
Sure.
And we will provide an update on savings, annual savings to you, hopefully soon, because we have been realizing a lot of these savings that the president is talking about by looking closer at how we utilize our budgets and what we're buying, and making that effort to try to maximize the taxpayer dollar.
Right.
So I have just a question. About how much have we been spending a year with POMS?
On this particular items or?
Right, yeah, right, on whatever we've been purchasing.
This is a fairly large item. You could spend anywhere from $80,000 to $100,000.
Mhm. So we're right, go ahead.
We're working in concert with the president and others on campus. We're actually replacing a lot of our paper dispenser, handwrite paper dispensers with electric cylinders.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to save us a lot of money. It also saves us a lot of convenience with that wastewater treatment plant that doesn't care for that paper either. So we're looking at the big picture, trying to reduce our consumption of paper and other products, but for the most part, we spend between $80,000 and $100,000, and a lot of our activities that we have with marketing, public relations, some of our outside activities that we have, we use a lot of paper.
Good. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Member Sullivan?
This, in terms of products, includes delivery, I assume?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then it also includes service on dispensers. And does it include the installation of those dispensers?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
And on our schedule.
Okay, and then the product, and it says servicing the products. What does that mean? Does that mean replacing toilet paper, or what does that mean?
You know, if the dispensers are not working, they're required to come in and make a new spot checking to make sure that they are working properly. If they're not working properly, they are to replace it. The agreement also calls that they need to have, I think we, if memory serves correctly, it says about 10% dispensers available to us that we can replace ad hoc on the spot. It also includes a 4-year, or I believe 4 annual trainings on all the products and services for the POM step, and all that is at no cost. So the cost savings, you know, that's where the cost avoidance comes in. It's not just cost savings in terms of monetary, but cost avoidance is that we don't have to pay for other services that
Okay, so where you still have paper towel dispensers, those are replaced, or those, the paper towels are replaced by maintenance staff, is that correct?
Correct. But they're required to walk around as well at least once a month, kind of spot checking it to ensure that if they find one that is broken, they are to replace it, the vendors.
I see. Of course, we have to pay for that, but,
No, we don't pay for it.
oh, as long as they provided it. But, oh, that even though they didn't provide the dispenser, they would replace it with a new one?
They replace it with a new one that accepts their product that we purchased.
Oh, I see, that accepts their paper products. Okay.
Their hand soap dispenser.
Okay. Well, they can start in the fitness center.
Well, that's one of the reasons we've been a little late. We're just trying to get them started. We've been buying paper at Sam's. So we
Oh, okay.
supplies so we can get this.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? If not, do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve.
Motion is made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Made and seconded to approve the laundry supply agreement. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Next, we go to policy. And we have a first reading of a number of policies. First is policy 2-5, admission of secondary school students.
Madam Chair, we actually discussed policy 2-5 and 2-7 during the work session, and based on your feedback, we have a couple of minor changes that we will make before we present it for final reading, and that's both on policy 2-5 and 2-7.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that regarding one of those policies, we talked about the fact that the policy identifies the student, the Vice President for Student Success, which is a position that is going away at the end of June. And so in order not to have, and that occurs over a number of policies, so in order not to have that correction have to come back through the entire policy review process, I move that we empower the president to update our policies, titles, and positions as the organization changes occur.
Great.
I second that motion.
Motion is made and seconded. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, point of order. That motion is out of order. This is a first reading of policies. And secondly, that issue is not included on the agenda.
Pardon me?
I said that is not included on the agenda, that topic.
I see.
First reading.
I think we looked at it as an amendment to one of the earlier.
Well, we did talk about that
Yeah.
today, but we have a 48-hour notice period for agenda items.
I withdraw the motion.
So that'll come up during the final reading of the policies.
Madam Chair, we'll put that as an action item on the next meeting agenda.
Yes.
I withdraw my second.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments from the board on either policy 2.5 or 2-5 or 2-7? If not, let's move on to policy 5-8, roadways and parking.
So we're looking at, Mason, look at F26.
Chairman, members of the board, President Grissom.
I don't think it's working again.
There you go. I see a green light.
It keeps going.
Whoa. Now we're ready. To my right is Noe Villarreal. He's our safety officer and also has worked diligently to help us with these policies and procedures. Let's see, let's start with 510. And I'll go ahead and
5-8.
or excuse me, 5-8, I'm sorry. And I'll go ahead and Noe go ahead and walk us through some of these, some of our updates. Primarily, there hasn't been many changes since our first reading to you all.
This is the first reading.
First reading, but since our introduction on this.
Basically, 5.8, just it's a policy that parkways and roadways, and it covers the traffic flows, the parking areas on campus, and making them safer, making them. I'll just read a little bit here. The Santa Fe Community College policy provides guidelines for the safe flow of traffic and reasonable access to facilities for students, employees, and the general public. And this is consistent with our mission statement. And basically and then we go through, I don't want to read the whole thing, but it just covers the safety in our parking spots and our safety in our traffic flow. The policy applies to all employees, to general public, and it also does not, the Santa Fe Community College does not assume any liability, which is a big thing, and express in any damages or anything that happens to vehicles. So I just paraphrased a bunch of stuff here.
Madam Chair, basically what we've taken is the existing policy and put it in the new format and added in, I think with the definitions were not necessarily in the original policy, and pulled some procedure out. But other than that, it's not much different than the original policy.
It's just one item in policy statement. The first sentence is just a matter of, it states security and safety. We need to turn that around just to say safety and security. Basically, that's all.
And the policy identifies definitions, so it's clear to what type of parking we offer, what type of roadways, and the statement of accountability and responsibility. And we also refer to state code in terms of identification of what a green driver is and what a carpool stands for, and so forth and so on.
Any questions or comments from board members?
I had a question as I looked at both the policy review and the policy statement. It seems to me that we could have a clearer statement about what the policy requires or what the policy is intended to do. You might look at that.
Under scope and applicability?
Pardon?
Under scope and applicability?
Either, well, I was looking at it either in the policy overview or the policy process, or the policy statement.
Okay, okay.
Beyond providing guidelines for safe flow of traffic and reasonable access, which is what it states in the policy overview right now. You want it clear? If you got some examples you want to share afterwards, we can work on it.
Yeah.
I will.
Okay.
Member Sullivan?
Correct me if I'm wrong, unlike some other colleges, we don't issue parking stickers for
We do not.
campus cars, correct?
We don't know.
Okay. Now, there are areas, of course, that are reserved parking and handicap parking and so forth as required by law.
Correct.
When a student enrolls, how do we make them aware of the requirements of this policy?
Just basically, it's a general statement on facilities and if they have vehicles, and just a general statement. It's not a specific thing we do.
So what we do is a community college is we'll have a student handbook which the student accepts when they become a student citizen of the college, and inside that handbook we relate to the campus policies and procedures. So if there's a question related to vehicles, parking, they would go from the student handbook to the policies and procedures to identify and get any information they needed with requirements to any of those requirements.
Okay, but the handbook gives them kind of summary of what this policy
Madam
is.
Chairman, Member Sullivan, it probably does not. It just refers to policies. I think for the most part at this point in time, we rely upon the signs that are in the parking lot and on the roadways. That's where we have most of our signs. The only place where somebody does go through a process is to be able to use the carpool parking lot. They do have to apply through the safety and security office. Yes. And I don't know if we give a sticker or we record their license and we know which ones they are.
I was just wondering because I know you have several policies that seem to refer to this, such as I think one prohibits overnight parking.
Yeah.
So I just wondered how
It's
how
available.
a new student knows that there's no overnight parking allowed.
It's available to them as well on the website, so they could go onto the website and type the search word parking and identify, and the policy would come up and they could identify the requirements through that as well.
But Madam Chair, Member Sullivan, I think most of the time, it's if somebody does something that violates the policy, safety and security talks to the people. We don't issue tickets. If somebody does do something repeatedly, we do have a sticker that we sometimes put on their window. But for the most part, it's the one-on-one conversations with people who are violating a policy that they're not aware of. It doesn't happen very often, to be honest with you.
Well, just as a thought, when we get around to revising the student handbook the next time, you know, parking is always a confrontational issue, it seems, everywhere. And it seems that it just might be good to put a few general items in there about it and then refer them on to the policy if they need more, or to a security officer. It's just a thought.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
are most of the areas, you have signage and there's a designated area for parking?
Yeah, for the most part, the areas are all clearly marked.
Clearly marked, so if it says student parking,
Or backup parking.
or you have
Or handicap.
handicap, right?
Yeah, it's identified, labeled on the parking
Right.
spaces themselves.
Yeah, well, there's no identification in the fitness center other than the handicap parking.
And all the other.
All the others are just,
Open parking.
it doesn't even say open parking, it's just, you know, catch as you can. Right.
Board Member Cedillo, typically the pattern acknowledged by the students is if it doesn't say faculty, award winner, board member, it's open season.
Okay.
So unless there is some particular requirement saying that you cannot park there, we assume that we can park there, and we do park there.
I thought so.
So that's basically the way it's carried out now.
So a quick comment under the statement of accountability and responsibility. I think it would be really nice if we gave some authority to and recognized campus security, just to say that they are the one-on-one line officers in charge of enforcing the policy, and that people with access to parking have a duty and a responsibility to do as they're told, to respond appropriately when campus security advises them to do something. I just think it's nice to give them some authority in that process. If they're the ones going out one-on-one and having conversations with people, I think we need to give them some authority there.
Sure, we identify them in the policy process, letter A, to give them accountability. So I appreciate
Any other comments on this policy?
Nope.
No? Thank you.
Oh, Madam Chair, sorry to drag this one out. Campus safety and security, and that's your responsibility, correct? You're part of it, okay. Shall develop and publicize a plan for determining parking designation and appropriate usage of roadways, parking, bicycle spaces, and other designated areas. Is there such a plan?
There is a plan now, we are constantly looking at revising it to match our needs for parking and.
And this is a plan that we publish on the website, or what do we do with this plan?
I don't know, it's a plan that's done internally.
Yeah.
For our people to make sure the facilities are basically used for the proper way and to keep things
Right.
going safely, but it's a internal policy plan.
Well,
so that's
Madam Chair, Member Sullivan, we'll look and see if it is on the website. It may be on the website along with we have a campus safety plan. I think we have some other plans out there. I'll check on that.
And
We're always looking at it, so.
Yeah, and we're also in the process, of course, after approval of this policy, to develop procedures so we can identify specific procedures required and necessary for the various parking applications.
I just want to be sure in these policies, if we commit to do something,
Sure.
that we're doing it, and that it can be identified and it can be found and it can be current.
Yeah, he's referring to our procedures, which we do have a plan, and that plan identifies parking and how we use that parking.
And Madam Chair, Member Sullivan, and members of the board, we're actually working right now on some ideas to do some maps around campus, sort of the, wayfinder maps as well as you hear maps, which would include parking and designated parking areas. So we're hoping to get those placed around campus here in the near future.
So policy 5-10, college-owned vehicles.
Okay, thank you. Yes, this is, again, as the President related earlier, this is a revised policy. Yeah, I think this is a revised policy. We combined owned and leased vehicles, which was two separate policies at one time. Essentially, this gives us the, if you will, the necessary requirements for us to authorize the use of our vehicles. It allows us usage and reservation documentation that's necessary. It provides those users tips and safety responsibilities of them to use these vehicles. It identifies what they need to do in the event of an accident. All of this information is described within this policy.
Any comments?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. Under policy statement D, you say personal vehicles are not considered part of the fleet, and the college discourages the uses of personally owned vehicles as transportation for official college functions. So I understand that if you're transporting students, for example, but it seems to me that it's a little too broad. So if somebody's going to a meeting in Albuquerque or Taos or Las Cruces or wherever, does this statement say that we discourage them from taking their personal vehicles?
We ask them to use a college-owned vehicle first. If there's no college-owned vehicle available, then perhaps secondarily they could use a personal vehicle.
Madam Chair, Member Romero, I think that's a good point. I think we ought to define official college functions because we really don't discourage people from using their personal vehicle for going to meetings in Albuquerque. They can use a college vehicle. They do assume some liability if they go in their own vehicle, but we do want to really limit it for official college functions, which is mostly transporting students and others. So we'll look at that, but maybe at a minimum we should define official college functions in the definition.
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
Okay.
My second comment has to do with the working fleet. SFCC owned or leased vehicles used around campus, including but not limited. So I'm just reading this again and saying, okay, used around the campus, and that's why you are not using, you are not talking, you have not included cars. You're using maintenance carts, security carts, ground vehicles, and I guess the defining thing is that they're used around the campus.
Not off campus.
So I withdraw that.
Yes, our working fleet that refers to those vehicles are used on campus.
Okay. Then on page 3 or 4, number 6, other requirements are found in policy. Do we need to define what policy?
Number 6. C6.
C6.
On page, if you,
On page 3.
let us look into that one.
The last sentence. Other
I'm not sure you were
requirements are
talking
found
about
in
the
policy.
insurance policy.
Yes, we were referring to a policy that refers to liability insurance.
Okay, so we probably should note it.
We need to spell that out a little bit more.
And then finally, on 8, I think that's finally. Other service animals are allowed to be only service animals, unless prior approval is approved. And who approves that? It's number 8.
Correct. That would go back to the statement of accountability and responsibility.
So it would either be me or the executive director or our
Okay.
designee.
All right, thanks.
We do have dog classes, and I bet you they've been in the van before.
Member Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, on page 3, item 7, who are the authorized passengers that may ride in SFCC vehicles.
Apologize, Member Sullivan, I didn't hear the question.
Item 7, on page 3, number 7.
Okay.
My question is, who are the authorized passengers who may ride in SFCC vehicles?
Okay, let's see if we don't have that in definitions.
And I think we need to add that to definition.
Yeah, I think we need to
That's
add
going to be employees, it's going to be students who have signed the release form, and it could be other guests that have been approved. So let's come up with a definition of authorized
And then,
passenger.
and then, in addition to that, who authorizes them once they fill out those things?
Again, it goes to the statement of accountability and responsibility. It's up to the president or their designee.
So the president has to,
Or their
every time
designee.
someone using a vehicle?
Or their designee.
It's part of the approval process, and when somebody checks out a vehicle, they do get their supervisors sign off, and in some cases it comes all the way up to me, it depends. And then if it's a class, then they have to have every student be a student in the class, and they have to sign the release form before they can ride the
Okay.
vehicle.
As long as you,
Some of that will be spelled out in the procedures.
Procedures.
And then
We
my
do need
last-
to define those.
the last comment was under F, paragraph F, page 3. You have a note there, college funds may not be used for payment of fines and violations, but you also say that in the paragraph, in the sentence right above that, in number 1, all fines and traffic violations incurred by drivers of SFCC motor vehicles must be paid by the driver, except for an equipment malfunction. So it seems like that bold note there is kind of a repeat of number 1 above.
Well, just because they're paid by the driver doesn't mean that the driver may intend to use college funds. So we wanted to clarify that the driver can't use college funds to pay for that. Perhaps we could combine it in that sentence if you would prefer that.
It doesn't need to have the note portion there. Having it in there, and the reason we have it in bold is to make sure people notice it, but that may not be appropriate to do in policy.
Okay, so you think it's a good idea to have that note there?
No, I think we could take the note off, but I think the
Remove the
phrase, does need to be in there. Either it's a.
Just add it to number 1.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. I think her preference was to really highlight that, but point well taken.
But you could still highlight it and leave the note off.
Right. The word
Sure,
note.
absolutely. Thank you.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
So, just a couple of questions from me. Do we have a policy on allowing employees to take vehicles home?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, but we do allow, sometimes people do take the vehicles home if they arrive late at night. But they can come in and turn it in and leave it here and leave the binder there, or if they're leaving on a real early morning trip. So we have done that before. But as a general rule, they have to check it out, and we have so few vehicles, it would be pretty hard for us to allow somebody to take it home.
Yeah. If it's approved within their travel request and identifies an early time or a late time of arrival, and they choose to stay home that evening and bring it the next day, that's approved through their travel procedure process.
All right. Lastly, just a quick, and I'm sure you guys caught this, but there's a little typo in our version under definitions, number 1. The word vehicle twice in the sentence right next to each other.
Yes.
Any other comments from the board?
Nope.
If not, discussion on policy 8-6, public information notices and news media contacts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair and members of the board, I'm here to discuss the public information notices and news media contacts policy. This establishes the guidelines and responsibility for speaking on behalf of the college and making official statements to the news media on behalf of the college.
This is a new policy, correct?
No, actually, the college had a policy related to this. This is a complete rewrite, though, so it is a modern version. it was way old.
Any comments from board members or questions on this policy?
Nope.
Madam Chair.
Board Member Sullivan?
At our work session, I discussed the sentence that was added under the policy statement that employees have the right to speak for themselves or express their own opinion, while making clear that they are not officially representing SFCC, which I felt was good and clear. And I just wanted to reiterate that I feel that that is also a good, clear sentence to include in policy 1-4, which we're also working on at this time, with the exception being board members instead of employees. And the second question I had, never mind. I think I got that one answered.
Any other? Thank you. Actually, stay there, right? So next, policy 8-8, public website management.
And this is a brand-new policy establishing roles and responsibilities for managing the college's public website. The responsibility rests primarily with marketing and public relations.
Mm-hmm.
Any comments or questions from board members on this policy?
I had one question, and that is, I look at a lot of websites, and some of them have make it very difficult for one to find information about how to contact individual staff people. I wondered if that's something that you've paid any attention to, or that, something that I didn't see it in the policy, and I don't know whether that needs to be here or if that's just something you do.
It's really a procedural thing, and I would like to mention again that the website for the college is under major construction right now. We will unveil a new website toward the end of August once registration is over, so that we don't confuse too many people during registration period. But an active directory, easy to locate people, is a very important part of that rollout. And we do have a directory on the current website, but I agree it's not that easy to find and could be greatly improved.
Yeah, great. My other comment was on what's the distinction you're making between a website and a web page? Under 3 of the definitions, you talk about any website or web page that officially represents a college is a public website.
I can give you one example that might clarify. Kids Campus has a website.
Okay.
But it is under the umbrella as a public website of the college. So it falls under the management that we go over in this policy. But a web page within a website can be maintained by an individual department by themselves, updated regularly. For instance, the art gallery might have a change in their title of a show or their hours. They can go in and change that one page, but they can't
Okay, thank you.
do the whole page.
Madam Chair? I'd like to add, from a student perspective, the directory is definitely in need of some revamping. It's definitely a challenge because of the adjunct faculty situation. People change. But when I'm trying to turn in a paper and I'm not going to be there and I need to email my professor, I don't have my syllabus, it just can be really challenging to find faculty on the web page, especially because they're not all listed under their department. So having a directory that's geared toward that necessity would be immensely helpful.
We hear you.
Excellent.
And
Thank you.
understand. Yeah.
Any other comments? Board Member Sullivan?
Just one, Madam Chair, on page 1. What does it mean that the policy establishes that the primary responsibility for oversight of the top levels of the SFCC official website rests with marketing and public relations. What does that top levels mean?
That we have tiers of responsibility within the website. As I was mentioning, an individual department might have the authority to go in and change some information. That would be a lower tiered departmental page. But for the upper pages of the website, which would mean the ones that recruit for the college, that establish the face, if you will, of the college, the official image of the college, those are maintained exclusively by marketing and public relations.
So it might be a good idea, because there might be different ideas of what top levels mean. To include that in the definitions.
Find that a little better.
And just put it in the definitions. Just what you said.
Okay. Good suggestion, thank you.
Any other comments on this one? No? Thank you. We're all done with the first reading of policies. Information items, purchases over $100,000.
Do we have any? Yes, we do.
Madam Chair, board members, President Grissom, I believe in your packets you have a memo from our Chief Procurement Officer, Ed Ibarra.
Page G1.
Right.
According to college policy, we are directed to report to the board any purchase over $100,000 up to $150,000, and only the board can approve a contract over $100,000. So this is an information item. This is for the construction of greenhouses for some instructional programming, and it has been basically procured under an RFP. With that, I'll let Ed Ibarra talk a little bit about it.
What we ended up doing in this particular case is a little bit different than a regular RFP. We did an RFP to establish a short list of vendors whom we can then do a second tier pricing, which is a request for quotes, which allows us then to do this procurement without an RFP, if that makes any sense, because the contracts were established through the RFP process. And the reason we did that is because the vendors who could provide the services we didn't have a contract with, the end users weren't quite sure what we're going to want, and to be able to have communications and engage with the vendors and to be compliant with procurement law, we said, okay, let's go out and do a request for proposal, establish a shortlist with vendors, enter into a contract, and then engage. And we engage by doing a second tier pricing with Stuppy and Crop King. Crop King came about $22,000 less expensive for the same functionality as Stuppy. And that's how we came up with 127.
And this was another one we worked closely with Palm on and his group.
And also with the academia, we included Adam Cohen and Stephen Gomez, and Camila was involved as an advisor in this process as well.
Great.
This covers our greenhouses, and ultimately this will overlap with our microgrid project.
Good.
Any questions from board members? Member Sullivan?
Just to clarify, this item on the agenda, if it's between 100 and 100,000, 150,000, then you just have to report to the board. Is that correct? And if it's 150,000 or over 150,000, then the board has to approve it. Is that how the policy works?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is just an information item then. So we don't vote on this.
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Even if we don't like it, right? Which it's fine. Yeah, it was just an opportunity to rag on you. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Ibarra. Update on the corrective action plan for the FY15 audit. Mr. Tejas.
Yes, Madam Chair, board members, President Grissom, we have been working on this corrective action plan for the college since the audit was released earlier in the year in I think February is when it was finalized. We put corrective actions into place. We identified about 14 action tasks, if you will, that were monitored on a monthly basis. And all of those items have been, in our estimates, corrected towards 100%. There's a couple of items here that we're still working on, but the audit hasn't begun yet, so we have a little bit of time to complete those. And with that, I believe you've had a chance to take a look at the actual schedule of corrections, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from board
We had a
members?
pretty good discussion at the, earlier,
The Board Finance Committee.
at the Board Finance Committee.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you for the update, and congratulations on all the hard work you've done
Well, we'll see. Thank you.
in addressing the audit.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, results of student satisfaction survey. Mr. Morimoto.
Madam Chairs, members of the board, President Grissom, I'll keep this short. So to summarize the results of the survey, compared to our national community college, we had 28 items that was higher than our comparison group. Whereas when we're looking at the lower scores, only 2 were lower than the national comparison group. And those 2 items are in the area of updating our equipment in the lab facilities, and classes are scheduled at a time that are convenient for me. Now, there's a lot of items to celebrate. We've made significant improvement compared to 2012. 11 of the 12 categories showed a dramatic increase, as well as when we're looking at ourselves, looking at our scores of how do we compare against National Community College overall, we had a score of 6.25 on a 7-point scale compared to our 5.75 on a 7-point scale. And I stand for questions.
Any questions from board members on this item?
Madam Chair, just like to add to this, we talked about this in great detail at the work session, and we'll be doing some press releases, I think, on this issue. We're really pleased that our students think so highly, especially of the instructional programs and the services they get here. We do take to heart the suggestions of the areas where we can improve, and we think we're on the way in both of those with our technology fee that we've just implemented starting this fall, and with setting up a project to look at how we can better schedule our classes to meet the needs of our students.
Thank you for the information, very helpful. Next on the agenda, board reports, discussions, and other business. Are there any board reports or discussions? Member Sullivan?
Madam Chair, 2 items. One, in the college communicator, June 13th, it was discussed that we're hiring a chief information officer, and there was a forum to, I guess, allow people to comment on the final candidates. And my question is to the President Grissom, what will this chief information officer be doing, and what will what will he or she be doing that's different than the marketing and public relations department does?
Madam Chair, Member Sullivan, members of the board, the Chief Information Officer is the head of all of our IT programs. That's the common term for Chief Information Officers, head up the Office of Information Technology. Jeremy Lavato has been in that position as an interim for the past year, and so that is the position that we are now filling, so that it's no longer an interim.
Okay, so it's not a public information officer, it's a chief information officer?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so it's an IT position?
Yes.
Okay, then my second question was, there was a flurry of activity a couple of months ago about Econopex, and I was curious as to what the update on that might be.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Member Sullivan, I do know that they are working still on financing situations. I do know that they have some progress on that. I do not know that I just noticed I have an email requesting me to attend a meeting with a potential funder with them in the next couple of weeks. So I do not know where they are in terms of the final financing, but they are moving forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Great, thank you. Any other comments from board members? No. So, announcements of next board meetings. We have scheduled for Saturday, July 23rd, 2016, a board retreat. We anticipate that will be an all-day retreat, probably from 9 o'clock in the morning until 4 or 5 in the afternoon. We have posted a board finance committee for Tuesday, July 26th. However, because of the close of the fiscal year, we anticipate that that meeting will be canceled and not noticed publicly. We have a meeting, regular board meeting, our next one scheduled for Wednesday, July 27th. We will look at the agenda of the board retreat and see if there are some final policy matters that can be moved into that meeting. If so, we may not have a regular board meeting and may move that into our public meeting, the board retreat on Saturday, July 23rd.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Where is the retreat going to be?
We're still looking at that.
To be determined.
TBD, okay. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. So do I hear a motion to adjourn into closed session?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
No closed session.
No closed session?
Oh, closed session.
No?
We do have a closed session.
Yeah, we do.
Oh.
I have to find the reading. Do you have the reading in front of you?
Yeah, I have it, Madam Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
The board will adjourn to closed session for the purposes outlined in the
Agenda.
published agenda, tab J.
Great. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
I second.
Motion is made and seconded. Any discussion?
We're okay with that.
If
Do we
not,
have to
all
read
those
it?
in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Been read.
Thank you.
Been read.